Do you find by the greater weight of the evidence that defendant CNN committed defamation per se against plaintiff Zachary Young? Yes.
And see, this is what the American people voted for. They want this situation controlled. It's out of control. You've had millions of people flow into the country, including a lot of violent people.
We gonna nail this Zachary Young mother, which is not a great text.
CNN just got busted for defamation, specifically on Jake Tapper's show. His salary's frozen. He's not going to get a raise this year. He gets $7 million a year, but they just now lost $5 million of it in this defamation lawsuit. We've got the details for you and the overarching cultural implications on free speech. Megyn Kelly's going to weigh in. Scott Jennings, and of course, CNN has buried this article off of their news site. Let's go. Okay, first up, we have the judge. Actually, this is the actual statement of the charges.
What's your verdict?
We have.
All right, you have the verdict form with you?
I do.
Can you hand that to the bailiff, please?
I will.
In the State Judicial Circuit in Fort Bay County, Florida, case number 22608CA, Zachary Young plaintiff versus Cable News Network Inc. defendant. Verdict form number 1. Do you find by the greater weight of the evidence that defendant CNN committed defamation per se against plaintiff Zachary Young? Yes. Number 2, do you find by the greater weight of the evidence that defendant CNN committed defamation by implication against plaintiff Zachary Young? Yes. Number 3, what is the total amount of plaintiff Zachary Young's damages for both lost earnings in the past and for the loss of his earning capacity in the future, reduced by the amount that plaintiff could have earned from comparable employment? $4 million. Number 4, what is the total amount of plaintiff Zachary Young's damages for pain and suffering, mental anguish, inconvenience, injury to reputation, and loss of capacity for the enjoyment of life that he sustained in the past and that he has sustained for the future? $1 million.
So he just got $1 million for his damages. Compare the $5 million. Now this is there's going to be another sentencing coming up where he's going to win even more damages, but he got $5 million for this one. I just want to compare it to E. Jean Carroll getting $83 million from Donald Trump. Now, this is the CNN lawyer as they're going on to the next phase of damages, warning them that if they find CNN too much money, CNN, boo-hoo, won't be able to cover the news, which I would think would be a public service to have them not cover the news.
You heard General Young, plaintiff's expert, testify, and he kind of made this offhand comment, and I thought it was very interesting. He said he was watching the coverage of the wildfires in Los Angeles, which are really heartbreaking. And he said that CNN's coverage was outstanding. And he wasn't wrong. Because when natural disasters break out, CNN is there. And that's hurricanes, that's wildfires, that's earthquakes. When conflicts erupt, like some of the ones we've heard in this case, CNN's there. And
CNN is there to defame a military man and say that he was getting paid during the withdrawal of Afghanistan, that he was taking money on the side with no evidence. And Megyn Kelly's going to get into this, but they knew they were going to defame him, and they said, get him.
And providing all of that content, that really important content's expensive. But it has a really tremendous value, because we as Americans need to understand what our fellow Americans are going through if they're in California, or if they're on the Gulf Coast and get hit by a hurricane, or if there's an earthquake in Northern California, or if there's a war in Ukraine. All those things are really valuable.
In the hands of other networks, pay your money, pay your fine. You're still going to be in business, but next time, don't defame someone that costs him money, pain, and suffering.
So you've made a decision that CNN's liable, but that doesn't mean that there isn't, a reasonable path forward. So over the next few hours, and I hope it doesn't take that long, you're going to hear about CNN's net worth. And you're going to see that the net worth of the company is actually in a subtle decline.
Probably because they defame everyone so much. That's not the problem. Tell it to the judge. The next phase could be very expensive, and I hope so. Remember, Trump has also sued news companies, so this will help establish precedent for anyone who performs defamation. to have to pay innocent people that don't have as big of a microphone as CNN. And now here's Scott Jennings with part of CNN's good work they do, but he's the lonely conservative on the whole network. But they need him to save their bottom line. Here he is doing his good work on the news.
First of all, if you came into the country illegally, by definition, you are a criminal of some kind. A. B, it's been made pretty clear the priority is to find people who are here who have otherwise criminal records on top of that, have committed violent crimes. And see, this is what the American people voted for. They want this situation controlled. It's out of control. You've had millions of people flow into the country, including a lot of violent people. If they succeed right out of the gate in catching those folks, yes, this is what the bureaucracy is for, though, is to help sort this out. But you can't let, in my opinion, the perfect be the enemy of the good. And the good right here is to get immigration crisis under control in this country.
Bureaucracy.
Look, we've had deportations in this country before. I mean, President Obama deported millions upon millions of people from the country. It can be done. It's just that it hasn't been a priority for the last 4 years, but it is a...
And I'm going to skip out of that for just a second. Scott Jennings brings up that Obama deported too, but CNN did not paint it as drastic or racist or breaking up families. And CNN, just their slant, they deserve to lose this lawsuit. We're going to get back into it more with... This guy ends up finding Jim Acosta in an airport and lets him have it.
Hey, is this Jim Acosta? Yeah. Wow, fake news, Jim Acosta, everybody.
That's fake news, Jim Acosta. His salary's also frozen. And a good thing. Let's go over, I'm going to cut over real quick to CNN's website to see if they reported on the news, that is, that they performed defamation. So here we are over on the CNN news site, and oddly enough, there's not one single article on the news of them Jake Tapper and them losing a defamation case for defaming our servicemen. That seems like a legit story. So all of CNN's competitors are reporting on it, and only CNN isn't talking about it. They're still downplaying it because places like ABC, NBC, CBS all are going to get hit too, but not one article on the CNN website. And finally, here's Megyn Kelly on the actual CNN admittance of guilt. This is what really roasts them and gets them busted.
This just breaking, Maureen. CNN, bad news, just found liable in a defamation case for $5 million. And now the jury recommending that they move on to the punitive damages phase, which is no bueno for CNN. Here's what happened. A U.S. Navy veteran by the name of Zachary Young was put on CNN screen in a report done by a reporter named Alex Marquette. It aired on Jake Tapper's show. And in this report, Alex Marquette CNN suggested that this guy Young was an illegal profiteer working in Afghanistan with those who needed to be evacuated, charging them thousands of dollars to flee the country following the U.S. military withdrawal.
Yeah, that's kind of bad. Whoops. That's kind of bad to say about someone when it's a made-up lie. There's some damages in order.
And this guy Young was in touch with the CNN reporter, and before they ran the piece saying, no, not true, and what are you going to say? Because they reached out to him for comment, as you must. And he said, send me a list of questions, and I'll answer them. And they introduced texts in the lawsuit that he brought for defamation against CNN, including one in which Alex Marquette is texting another internal CNNer how annoyed he is that this guy Young has been in touch, saying, Young just texted.
Young is actually texting the news reporter, and the news reporter is denying news. That's literally your job, to take in information and then pass it on. And this guy is trying to hold to his story in spite of the facts.
Okay, and then there's a text in which, and he starts it with FFS, meaning for sake. Young just texted. It's like he's annoyed that his source, the subject of his story wants to talk about it. Like normally you're happy.
Normally that's great news.
If they yell at you, that's fine. Well, either way, interaction is fine. And then there was a text shown of Marquette's text where he told CNN's assistant managing editor, Matthew Phillips, we gonna nail this Zachary Young mother, which is not a great text when defending a defamation case. So now the jury has just come back finding CNN liable and saying they need to pay Mr. Young $5 million in compensatory damages, adding that he should also be awarded punitives. The trial will be heading into a second phase to determine the amount of punitive damages. Look, I hate to see, defamation cases succeed against our fellow media members because
I like seeing defamation trials succeed when they commit defamation. I don't get why she's holding out for CNN. I like seeing justice happen. The idea that they would get some kind of favor just because they're a media person, that's the whole point of their responsibility. Megan, man, she has a potty mouth too.
ever want to be in that position, right? I'd be lying if I said you didn't think, well, wow, geez, like nobody's perfect.
There, but for the grace.
But this sounds rather egregious. These texts make it pretty clear this reporter was not necessarily 100% interested in reporting what was real and true.
No, and you know what else is really, I shouldn't be shocked because it's CNN, but I was glued to that coverage and I read everything I could about it. And instead of CNN really going down the rabbit hole of how Biden was able to do this, despite every top general telling him not to do it, despite every top advisor telling.
You know what? That sounds like a good news story that CNN could have done, that every top advisor and general told Biden not to withdraw from Afghanistan the way he did. And instead they went after a soldier. That's not just some lowly newsman. That goes up to CNN's brand did that. They deserve to lose this money. Punitive damages are coming. That means more good news. Guys, mainstream media just keeps losing. They can't catch a break. This is a new era. CNN is going away. And news channels like this, streaming, independent voices, X, all these other platforms are going to take over, and CNN is back in the buggy whip era. And that's good news. Hope you guys have liked and subscribed. I want to hear from your comments below. Give me a theory. How much do you think Young's going to get in punitive damages? This should get into the millions, guys. Way millions. How much in punitive damages do you think CNN should pay? I'm Doug in Exile. If you want to watch another video, one's coming up right here, and you can subscribe right here.